So the NAR lawsuit is supposed to be over. But at the 11th hour, the Department of Justice decided, well, let's just leave the Realtors Association hanging in the wind. It's always good to keep it interesting, right? Or not? Less than 48 hours before our settlement hearing this past week, the Department of Justice raised concerns over the buyer-broker agreement. You know, they've had this information since April. They've had the settlement, and they basically blessed it and said it had to go through a final approval in November. And all of a sudden, 48 hours before they're getting ready to rubber stamp it, the Department of Justice, who is run by this guy, I think that says a lot right there. 48 hours before we get ready to sign this thing, on Sunday, the Department of Justice filed a statement of interest, specifically calling out the buyer-broker agreement as a point of contention. Well, I'll be damned. You wanted us to put the thing into place, and now, right before you get ready to rubber stamp it, you start to say it might be a problem? We implemented the terms of this agreement in all 50 states, all across the United States of America. Every freaking Realtors Association put this stuff into place, and as of August, everybody has had to abide by these rules that were sent to the Department of Justice, and they gave it a preliminary approval. And now all of a sudden, when it's time to put the ink on the paper and make it permanent, you're getting wishy-washy on us at the 11th hour, which is ridiculous. So here's what they say. The DOJ noted that the new provision that requires buyers and brokers to make written agreements before touring homes could harm buyers or limit how brokers compete for clients. Now, they weren't saying they weren't going to approve it, but they were saying that, well, we might have a problem with this at some point in time. Basically, they wanted to leave the can of worms completely open for whatever they wanted to do later. According to the outspoken settlement critic, Tanya Monsieur, I'm not sure if that's how you say her name right, but she's a professor of law at the University of Buffalo School of Law. She said the DOJ's a day late and a dollar short with its filing of this statement of interest, adding that the decision must have been deliberate and strategic. And I tend to agree with her. I mean, why would you wait to the very last minute to push back on something you ask us to implement and then decide, well, maybe it's not the best thing? According to the statement of interest by the Department of Justice, the buyer-broker agreement issue could be rectified by eliminating the provision or disclaiming that the settlement creates immunity or defense under antitrust laws. According to this law professor, the statement of interest does not stand to have a major impact on the settlement's approval, but rather sets a stage for further action from the Department of Justice. Now, these are her words, not mine. I think the DOJ wanted to be on record saying, okay, do whatever you want from a civil perspective, but that has nothing to do with us. At some point, we're going to come after you. So, some type of warning. So, Kevin Sears, who's the National Association of Realtors president, this is what he had to say about all of these shenanigans. The tactic by the Department of Justice was deeply disrespectful of our members, the court, and the entire approval process. The DOJ has had months since it first announced our settlement to make their opinions known, and this late filing shows the DOJ has nothing meaningful to say about it. After considering the DOJ's point of view, along with those of other objectors to the National Association of Realtors settlement, Judge Baugh of the District Court of Western Missouri, he's the judge that's ruling all over all of this, ultimately granted a final approval. So yes, it is approved. The terms are 100% completely approved. But it is interesting that the Department of Justice at the last minute wanted to be on record stating they could at any point in time decide to do a rug pull and, come after us anyways. So the settlement is approved. Things are going to go on as business as usual. Yes, it is now law that buyers must sign a buyer's agreement with a realtor prior to seeing a property. It's an agreement that makes everything extremely transparent because that's what they wanted us to do. They wanted us to be more transparent with the public. And the buyer's agreement makes things crystal freaking clear. Tells you what your responsibilities are. If the seller doesn't pay real estate commissions, what your responsibility is as a buyer. And yes, you will have to sign it if you want to see property. The National Association of Realtors bent over backwards to make the Department of Justice happy. This was all their doing, not ours. We bent over backwards, did what they asked, and now everything's in place. It's just very disappointing to see the way that they've handled things. But there is a silver lining. Looks like we're going to get a change in management at the Department of Justice. And hopefully with that, we'll have some sanity. All I can say is hopefully with the new leadership that's coming in at the Department of Justice, they will spend their time on more important things. Like child trafficking, terrorism, insider trading at Congress. Because spending their time going after realtor commission agreements is always a good use of your tax dollars. I don't know, but tell me what you think. What do you think of this whole last minute little nugget that they put in? I'd love to know what you think. I just think it's the people that are running the show right now have nothing better to do than to screw with the Realtors Association, along with the other weird things that they work on at the Department of Justice. Because I really haven't seen a whole lot of really good things coming out of the Department of Justice. But tell me what you think. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about as far as this lawsuit and settlement with the National Association of Realtors, I will stick that video at the end for you. You'll enjoy it. Then it'll all make sense. Until next time.